Hi, and welcome to Holistic Lifestyles. I'm Nancy Johnson, and I am really excited this week for our guest to tell you about. Her name is Suzy Wigstadt Simonson, and she is a best-selling author of Stroke to Success, and also an international speaker and a success strategist. And she has such an amazing story. Welcome, Suzy.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So
I'm excited to be here.
Great. I know. I'm so excited to have you here. We haven't known each other that long, but in the short time that we've known each other, it's one of those meant-to-be scenarios. So her story is amazing, and I really think it will be helpful to so many people who have gone through symptoms and issues and how she's dealt with it holistically and a lot of other ways as well.
Yeah.
So, going back to 2010, and even before that, you've experienced a lot of headaches and different types of headaches.
Yep.
And as they progressed, you also had anxiety and depression and some other symptoms, but it all changed in 2010. So would love you to walk us through that journey.
Yeah. So when I was 5 years old, I had my first hemiplegic migraine. And so with that, half of my body went numb. Excuse me. So half of my body went numb and I wasn't able to speak. So I remember being slouched over my dad's back and him telling me to squeeze his thumb and to squeeze his thumb, and I thought that I was. And went to the hospital. They thought that they called it a spell because they didn't know what happened. They did MRIs and EKGs and all of these things, and it just said abnormal brain patterns. And so they had no clue what was going on. And then, so I would sleep it off. I would sleep about 2 days to 3 days, and then it kind of felt like I had a hangover after that. When I was in junior high, they called them complicated migraines. So the same thing would happen, and it started happening about every 2 years. Then when I was in high school and college, they finally came up with the name hemiplegic migraines. So it's more than a migraine. It actually affects your mobility and your ability to speak. And with that, like I said before, I would just sleep for about 2 days and then I would be fine. So on September 25th of 2010, I wasn't fine. And it started as a hemiplegic migraine. And we don't know the time that it moved to a stroke, but it turned into a stroke. So actually my mom, she's been through so many of them with me. She called a nurse friend and said, "This feels different. How do we know if it's different?" And her nurse friend said, "If she starts throwing up, you need to get her in because it's bad." And I threw up 3 times that morning.
And the hemiplegic, they cause symptoms similar to a stroke, right?
Yes. So the numbness in your face, the inability to speak, all of that, all of those are symptoms of stroke, or can be symptoms of stroke.
Wow. And so that happened for a few days and you didn't even go to the hospital right away because you didn't think it was anything different.
Yeah,
right?
We thought that it was just the hemiplegic migraine. And also, we had talked about this before. When I was 5 years old, the doctors were thinking that it could be seizures. So they wanted to put me on anti-seizure medication for the rest of my life. And my mom, just in her gut, she said, if you're not 100% sure, we're not doing that to our daughter. And so it's a good thing because that medication could have taken away so much from my life when it wasn't seizures, it was migraines,
Right.
And then that turned into a stroke. And we're not sure. So I do have a hole in my heart. I do have a blood clotting disease that's called factor V Leiden, and then I have the hemiplegic migraine. So we don't know, and there's no way that doctors can go back and tell what caused the migraine. So now I have triggers that I know for sure to stay away from.
Yeah.
Or when the triggers are all in place, it's pretty much guaranteed that I'll get a hemiplegic. And so my husband pays really close attention to me and to those triggers, and he'll tell me to sleep or to go take a bath or relax so that it doesn't happen again.
So you had symptoms for a couple of days, and then it was the throwing up basically
Yes.
that told you had to go to the doctor, and
to
then
the hospital.
And then you ended up in the hospital for how long? And
so I was in the hospital for 7 days. 5 days I was almost comatose. So I was in a place where when I came back, I had the mindset of a newborn baby. And so I got to, not I had to, but I got to relearn everything from newborn baby to where normal was. So it exponentially happened, where I went from newborn to 2 years, 4 years, 8 years, 16, and then normal, whatever normal is.
Right.
So, but yeah, I was in the hospital for 7 days. It's so crazy because reality is where you're at, you know? So my
Right.
reality was a newborn baby. And so we would, my family would tell stories, and I would tell my side of the story. And there were little pieces that were the same, but they had their reality and I had my reality. So it's just a crazy thing in growth in life that we experience things differently, but to come together in that, just that each of our realities is our own.
Well, and one thing that I really liked in the book, because you talked about the soul of your
Yes.
family, knowing their souls, and I think so many people that have people in a coma or
Yes.
can't talk, you don't know what they're thinking. And so to know that someone in your case actually could know who
Yeah.
those family members were
Yeah.
was really amazing.
And it's getting me choked up right now just thinking, because I have a newborn baby, and to know that people say babies know your voice, but they don't just know your voice, they know your soul. I literally knew who was safe and who wasn't safe, and who had my best interest in mind and who didn't. And so I knew my family. I didn't know the hierarchy, so I didn't know that my mom was my mom and my sister was my sister, or my dad and my brother, or coworkers, my nanny. I just knew that they were mine.
Yeah.
And that I was safe with them. And then there's also a part in the book where I knew that someone didn't have my best interest in mind. And that is huge, because trusting our gut, I didn't have any other way to communicate except my body. So I didn't have words, my body just twitched when she was in the room, because I knew that she didn't have my best in mind. And now we've gone through that with our son, that he could feel when he was in the hospital, he could feel that someone didn't have his best in mind. And I heard her say something to him that was not okay. And so it just confirmed what I went through in the healing process of having the mindset of a newborn. And then now him being able to see that and to invest in him, that he can trust his gut, and
Right.
that we will trust his gut.
Well, and one thing I also like too is it wasn't just, blood family members. It was
Yes.
also friends that you call family, that are family, but you called them
Yes.
chosen family members. And I think some people listening to this,
Yeah.
might think, I don't really have anybody like that I could
Yes.
depend on. But, hopefully there's
Yes.
chosen family friends that you can depend on.
And that's a huge thing, is that exactly what you just said. Some people don't necessarily have their blood family members there. And so to know that you can still have family, but it's your chosen family. That we can go through, as adults, we've made such amazing friends that we call family, because
Right.
they're our chosen family. And they can be there just as closely as your blood family. And also, you had mentioned something, and now I forgot it.
I know we've talked about so much, so
yes.
it's just like I do the same thing
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely.
But I know we talked and you mentioned about the gut feeling.
Yeah.
I teach gut health a lot with people,
Yeah.
and we've talked about that trusting your gut, all
Yes.
those words combined with health and also
Yeah.
emotional and physical
Right.
matter. And you've had to trust your gut a lot through your
Absolutely.
whole life. And I even love that your mom taught
Yeah.
you that, I think, at a young age on trusting your gut
Absolutely.
and listening to you when you said something didn't feel right, and then she didn't feel right to her either. So
yeah, my life would have been very different if my mom hadn't trusted her gut and hadn't known 100% that this is what it is. My life would have been very different on anti-seizure medication, because that's the rest of your life. That's not something to fool around with or anything. So I'm so thankful. And she just was being a mom.
yeah,
And that's one of the things that I've realized, is that each of us is here to be exactly who our world needs.
right.
And if we shrink back, our world will go without. And the huge part of that is we don't even need to know what that means.
Right.
We just need to step up and to be who we're meant to be. So when we trust our gut, when we trust our body, so physically in the physical side plus the soul side, when we trust our gut in the physical side, that our bodies are trying to tell us something. So when we listen, then we will be who we're meant to be.
Right.
When we trust the soul side of it, we'll be who we're meant to be. So it's all about the gut, and our soul and our heart understands or knows before our brain understands. And too many times we try to figure things out with our brain instead of our soul and instead of our gut and our heart. And with that, it knows before, so we don't have to have it all figured out.
Right. And we talked about clues too.
Yeah.
That you get, like you had some clues and you
Yes.
were working too much.
Yes.
You had stress, you
Yes.
had all of that, you got yellow lights, and finally, you said something into your book, like the body will tell you.
Yes.
And your body finally told you, it
Yes.
stopped, it hit the red light.
Yes. So my body whispered to me, or my soul whispered to me for about 3 months, and my body was screaming at me for 3 months because I had a migraine every single day. I took some energy drinks that I no longer do anymore, but I had 4 hours of sleep. I worked 100 hours a week. I have 4 different companies that I was either a crucial part of or running myself.
Yep.
And my body stopped for me. And now when I hear people of how much they work and how much they put themselves out there in this workaholic and just knowing or trying to do so much, and it breaks my heart because we feel like we have to try so hard. But going back to when you are exactly knowing that you're exactly who your world needs and you show up, you actually don't have to try as hard.
Right.
Because you just get to be yourself. So listening to the yellow lights, listening to the stop lights and the stop signs, so that your body doesn't stop for
Right.
you.
And I always encourage everybody to be their own health advocate.
Yes.
That there's so much going on. Health professionals are overworked, and
Yes.
not everybody catches
Right.
what you can catch. So you need to be your own health advocate, or have family members too that
Yes.
will step in and intervene and say you need to do something about this.
And something interesting about that, when I was 5 years old, I felt like there was something wrong with my heart. And I just kept on, I would tell people, there's something wrong with my heart. I feel something wrong with my heart. And I never got an echogram until I was 35.
Wow.
So I was labeled as a hypochondriac, and I was labeled as, because I would get sick a lot, there was a lot going on inside of my body that we didn't know about.
Right.
But I would get the migraines, and if there was the flu going on, I would get it, and all of that. But it's good to know now that the feeling that I had was actually true, and now it's backed up by doctors.
Interesting.
So I would say to anyone out there, or to anyone that you work with, is that when you have something, a feeling inside your body that they can't test for easily, pursue it. Because we are the only people that know the insides of our body. We know what we feel, we know what we're going through. So to be able to do that, and also to know your stressors.
Right.
Because working 100 hours a week, getting 4 hours of sleep, having 4 businesses, I thought that I was Wonder Woman.
Right.
And
Right.
I thought that I could do it all.
We do.
Yes, yes, exactly. We think, and we can do things well, but we can't do everything well.
And headaches aren't normal. There's nothing in your body that isn't caused by something.
Right.
So it's like figuring out what that root cause is,
Yes.
and a lot of it's peeling layers, and people give up. And
Yeah.
I love, something that you had said in your book, after you were out of the hospital and home, and that was a long process of getting back to who you are today, which is so
Yeah.
amazing.
Thank you.
The journey that you've made, but you at some point decided, I don't want to do this anymore, and you wanted to check out, and you were on some medications, and
Yep.
then you were having some ill effects from those medications, so you made a decision
Yes.
to do something about that, and you said, you know, a chiropractor really saved my life. So I would love
Yes.
for you to share more, because I am such a proponent of trying everything,
Yes.
trying natural. There's other modalities that can be so helpful,
Absolutely.
and those people are really in tune with
Yeah.
what's going on,
Absolutely.
you know, emotionally, physically, mind, body.
Yep. So, so I was taking a specific medication, and the funny thing is, because my parents think that I'm a hypochondriac, or my family does, they didn't tell me the side effects. Not that I would have understood anyways, but they knew the side effects, but they didn't tell me.
Sure.
Just in case, you know, that.
Because then you would have them, right?
Exactly. And so, so I remember I was standing at the kitchen, at the fridge in the kitchen. My dad had just made some stew, so I was living with my parents, and the knife was still laying on the counter. And I looked back, and I had had suicidal thoughts that day. And I looked back at the knife, and I thought, no, that's not how I would do it. And I freaked myself out, and I knew that I needed to call my mom, my dad, my best friends, everybody. I called everybody. One of my best friends came over right away, because my mom had made a schedule for 3.5 months that I would not be alone.
Nice.
So each person with the "you are exactly who your world needs," each person stepped up into the position that I needed them in my life naturally, because I needed that. So they got to be who I needed. But with that, we called the doctor. She didn't have any openings, but she made one for 15 minutes. And we were in there with her for an hour and 15 minutes to talk through everything. And she said, okay, we'll wean you off of this. I got off the medication. I've never had a suicidal thought again. But just being able to say, there's a difference, there's a different way. And then, so the chiropractor, I started going to the chiropractor. My uncle had gone to him. And right after the stroke, actually, he referred the chiropractor, and it was so amazing because my family would go with me because I still couldn't speak. And so my family would translate what I was trying to say and couldn't say, and would just look at them like, talk for me.
Right.
And so the chiropractor, I went to him for, it started off, I think, 4 or 5 times a week, and he just worked with me and worked through not being able to speak, to the point where I would talk his ear off, you know. But without him, without every step that took place, I don't believe that I would be here, or that I would be here in the capacity that I am.
But the biggest step that you made in my mind is you told someone that you had those thoughts.
Yes.
And that's what I always want to encourage people. It's like, if you're having those thoughts, tell somebody, because I know people that have suffered with depression, and they think nobody cares or nobody wants to hear that.
Yeah.
But if you wouldn't have told someone, it could have been a very different outcome.
Yes, in so many ways. You know, all the different things that I went through, and that I was very honest and open about the healing and about what I thought, that I didn't think that I could go back to work. I thought I could. And I was driving to my old job, which was a sales position. So I used to drive around everywhere and build relationships with businesses and earn their business. And I thought that I was just going to hop back into that. And it turned out that I didn't, which is great. But I was very honest with the healing process and what I could and couldn't do. So I actually got to work with infants for 3 years. And so that was amazing, because my healing, I think that it went faster because I got to work with babies. And I would think, you know, I was there 3 months ago. I was there 5 months ago. I was there 10 months ago, you know, and so I really understood what they needed without them saying anything, because I needed that.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I never thought about it like that connection. And kids teach us so much anyway to live like a child. But do you really feel like, I feel like the whole picture, like your will helped you so much, your family helped you so much, the communities, the professionals, all of that. Like, how has your life changed now, and how do you live like holistically? You just had a baby 3 months ago, and you actually had an issue when you were in the hospital with him.
Yep. So before he was born, I had Bell's palsy. And so, is that what you were?
Yes, sorry.
Yes. No,
Thank you.
that's okay. So I had Bell's palsy and didn't know anything about Bell's palsy except for that my friends' dads had it. So it has the same symptoms as a stroke. So this was Thursday before he was born on a Tuesday. And so I had to take some steroids, and that affected his birth and his blood sugar. So we were in the hospital with him after he was born, and just really, I mean, most of the nurses were phenomenal and the doctors. But we are more of a holistic family, just knowing that there's more to what's going on,
Right.
that it's not necessarily to medicate, right away. And it's awesome to see Knox and to see his growth with that, and just being more natural. Like we have a photographer, we have a chiropractor that we see too, that all throughout pregnancy that I saw also.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that was really good, because knowing my body changed, and then there were things that would happen and I'm like, this doesn't feel right, or just how I was aligned and everything like that. So seeing our chiropractor definitely made a difference in the pregnancy.
And the fact that you even acknowledged Knox's knowing someone around him maybe
Yes.
wasn't
Yes.
who he preferred,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term, like he
Yeah.
he cried, or he gave you a sign, or
Yeah, so
something.
so what happened, and how I describe it is that she may not have had his best interest in mind. And so with that, I don't think that she's a bad person or
Right.
anything like that.
Sure.
But maybe she was having a bad day and she brought that to work, And there's a chapter in the book that says, leave your crap at the door.
Right.
And so
Yes.
that really is about the one person when I was in the hospital that really affected me, that I could tell she didn't have my best in mind. And there's a reason why. I overheard her talking, and it just wasn't good about me. So everyone else believed in me. Everybody else believed that I was going to make it through, and there was just this negativity about her that I reacted to. And so I stayed at the hospital with Knox, and my husband went home and got everything ready for the next day because there was only room for one. And so this nurse yelled at my son and just yelled at him, like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, he's a baby.
Right.
And she was the only person that he cried for. And he would cry literally when he heard her footsteps. And so that to me says that it was more of a soul thing, and it was more of an inside thing than anything else. So it was kind of cool though, because I got to be Mama Bear, and
Yeah.
I got to trust my gut,
Right.
and just say, and trust his gut, and say, I need a different nurse. So with that, being able to trust your gut enough to take action.
Right.
That learning that's one of the biggest things that I've learned, is that to put aside our gut feeling. Our gut feeling is not a silly thing.
Right.
It's there for a reason. It's there to warn us, it's there to guide us, it's there to encourage us. I mean, all the different things, your gut is there for such huge reasons.
Well,
so
and
just trust it.
And I think so many people, for lack of a better term, allow people to be in their lives that maybe
Yes.
aren't serving their best interest,
Yes.
or having their back, or being their cheerleader.
Yeah.
And it's just so important. I know family members can be different or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's like I choose to have people around me that
Yes.
really serve me well
Yeah.
and love me for whoever I am.
Yes.
And
you get to serve them well too.
Right.
It's that cyclical thing, to find the people in your life that really do lift you up and that love you for who you are. Because we're all made differently on purpose, and
Right.
to bring out those great things in each other's lives. And when there is toxicity, or when someone doesn't have another person's best in mind, it affects everything, And so some people have been have experienced abuse or different things like that, or are afraid,
Right.
you know, to go without that person or to go without that thing. And one thing that that's very interesting is that we hold on to things because at some point it served us.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point there was goodness in that thing, so we hold on to it. But if it doesn't serve you anymore, if it doesn't bring about good anymore, you know, that's where really we need to know ourselves and know our gut and trust it.
Well, because you talk in your book that you wouldn't take it back.
Yeah.
Like all that's happened to you has
Yeah.
brought you where you are today, having a successful business,
Yeah.
helping people in so many ways.
Yeah.
And I always am a big believer in that too. Everything happens for a reason.
Yes.
And you have to have faith in that and go with it sometimes, even though you don't like it.
Right?
But you had 4 jobs and you loved all of them.
Yeah.
In some respect, but now
Yeah.
you get to focus more on
Yeah.
and pick your own time and pick your family time. You talk about that too, which I think people maybe don't do enough of.
Yes.
Is I forgot how you termed it, chosen family time kind of
Yeah.
too.
So I have an equation in the book of to really be able to see where you're spending your time. Because I was working 100 hours. I wasn't married. I didn't have a child. I didn't have, it's just me. But I was working 100 hours and I still had a life and I only got 4 hours of sleep and, all these things that I didn't realize what I was taking away from myself.
Right.
By not setting aside time. And it's still something that I struggle with. Like my husband and I joke and, put our dukes up about time management still, because I'm not gifted in it. And so
Right.
he is. And so it helps for us, that he is.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it really is. It's a beautiful thing and it's a very hard thing at times. And it's a beautiful thing again, that I love that people are brought into our lives that complement. And so those are some people, it's the same and you're going the same direction and you're doing the same things, have the same heart, all of that. And then other people are very different, but you're going in the same direction and you've got the same heart, but both are there to bring out different things in you.
And kids especially give us
Yes.
perspective.
I am so excited for all that next is going to teach us, and it's fun that we have our own now.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. I know. I'm so excited for all that you do and
Thank
who
you.
you are, and you just have an amazing smile, and to think
Thank you.
that you went from everything you've gone in your life, from migraines, and it's not that people shouldn't complain, but there's plenty of people that do.
Right.
But I never hear that from you.
Yeah.
And I think your journey is going to help so many people.
Thank you.
Especially, but also knowing that the type of migraines you had, not everybody has.
No.
And that this isn't to make people run out and go, oh my gosh, I'm having a
No.
migraine, I'm going to have a stroke.
Right.
It's
right.
very different. That's a certain kind of a more rare
Yes.
migraine, as I understand it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's to the point where I do think that if you are having migraine after migraine after migraine after migraine, there could be your body could go through more, and you've got to pay attention to that. So someone that's having migraines, like I had migraines every single day for 3 months. So I medicated. I put the Band-Aid on it myself. I took over-the-counter medicine, and just every single day I would take them 2 to 3 times a day. And so with that, just knowing that that there's something, like, do something about it. But yes, no one is going to, it doesn't mean that they're going to have a stroke
Right.
having migraines.
Yeah, I'm remembering sometimes that is the easy way out for people.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's easy by any means, trust me.
Yes. Yeah.
But sometimes it's easier to try that versus there's so many natural solutions
Yeah.
that are just so good for you and
Yes.
supportive, and sometimes they can work in combined
time.
together. But we are unfortunately running out of time.
Oh, yeah.
And I know we're going to do this again, I hope.
Yes. Can I
Because
say-
yes, we have so much to talk about. So we got about 5 seconds.
Okay, so borrow my belief is a huge thing that that we're.
Perfect. Well, thank you
Yes.
so much, Suzy. I just love this. So
Yes,
All right.
absolutely. Thank you.
sounds good.
Yeah.
Yay.